Are you eating superfoods every single day, and yet your fatty liver isn't getting any better? You start your morning with oatmeal. You drink green tea. You add blueberries because you've heard they're good for your liver. And you believe that if you just keep eating the right foods, your body will eventually heal itself. But here's what most people don't understand. Most people believe foods like oatmeal can help reverse fatty liver. But what if I told you, they're only doing about 5% of the job while the real damage is still happening inside your body? It sounds uncomfortable. But if you look at the big picture, it becomes very clear. These top superfood lists have been around for decades. They repeat the same advice over and over again: oatmeal, green tea, blueberries, low-fat diets. And during that exact same time, fatty liver disease has continued to rise faster than ever before. So the real question is, what are they missing? Here's where things take a different turn. The problem is not that you're failing to eat enough good foods. The problem is that you're still exposed every single day to something that is silently damaging your liver, without you even realizing it. Don't start with food lists. Start with biology. Fatty liver is not simply a result of eating fat. That idea is not just incomplete, it's misleading. What's actually happening inside your body is a biological process driven by insulin, and something called lipogenesis process, where your body literally converts excess carbohydrates into fat inside your liver. And if you don't understand this mechanism, you can do everything right and still get the wrong results. So in this video, I'm not going to give you another generic list of foods. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to break down the exact foods you've been told to trust and put them in their proper place. You'll clearly see which foods actually target the root cause. Which ones are just better fish food, helpful, but not game-changing. And most importantly, the two powerful foods that almost every list completely ignores. And pay close attention to this. By the end of this video, you'll understand why changing just one key factor can account for up to 70% of your ability to reverse fatty liver. If you want more people to have access to clear, science-based health information like this, people who may be struggling silently just like you, take 2 seconds to like this video and subscribe. Now, let's get into what's really happening inside your body. Now here's where most people get this completely wrong, and this is the part that changes everything. Imagine your body is a lake. And inside that lake, there are fish. Those fish represent your liver. Now, one day, you notice something is off. The fish are weak, sluggish. Some of them are barely moving. Clearly, something is wrong. So what do most people do? They bring in experts. They analyze the situation. And then they come up with a solution. Let's give the fish better food. Higher quality nutrients. Better ingredients. Maybe even something labeled as a superfood. And at first glance, that sounds reasonable. But here's the problem. While everyone is focused on improving the fish food, no one is paying attention to what's happening on the other side of the lake. There's a factory. And that factory is dumping waste chemicals, toxins, pollutants directly into the water. Day after day. Non-stop. So now think about this carefully. Does it really matter how healthy the fish food is, if the water itself is toxic? Can you truly make the fish healthier, without shutting down the source of pollution? The answer is obvious. But in real life, most people completely miss it. Because this is exactly what's happening inside your body. Your liver, the fish, is struggling. And instead of removing what's harming it, people are trying to fix the problem by just adding better foods. More oatmeal. More green tea. More blueberries. That's not a solution. That's just slightly better fish food. Here's what most people don't understand. If you don't remove the root cause, the factory that's creating the damage, then no amount of healthy food will truly fix the problem. You might see small improvements. Minor changes. But the core issue? It's still there. Still active. still causing damage beneath the surface. And that's why so many people feel stuck. They're doing what they've been told is healthy, but they're not seeing real results. So before we talk about what to eat, we need to identify and shut down what's poisoning the system in the first place. Because until you do that, healing simply cannot happen. Now let's go deeper, because this is the part most people have never been properly taught. Fatty liver is not what you think it is. It is not caused by eating fat. Let me say that again clearly, because this is where the biggest misunderstanding begins. Fatty liver is not caused by dietary fat. So if fat isn't the problem, where does the fat in your liver actually come from? Here's the answer. And it's a biological process called de novo lipogenesis. That simply means your body is creating fat from something that wasn't fat to begin with. And what is that something? Carbohydrates. More specifically, excess carbohydrates that your body cannot immediately use or store safely. Now here's where insulin enters the picture. Every time you eat carbohydrates, your blood sugar rises. And in response, your body releases insulin. Insulin's job is to lower blood sugar. But it doesn't just do that. Insulin also acts like a storage signal. It tells your body, take this extra energy and store it. At first, your body tries to store it as glycogen. But that storage is limited. It fills up quickly. So what happens when there's still excess glucose in the bloodstream? Your liver steps in. And through de novo lipogenesis, it converts that excess glucose into fat. That fat doesn't just disappear. It gets stored right inside your liver. Now repeat that process day after day, meal after meal. And over time, fat begins to accumulate. That is fatty liver. Now here's where it gets even more critical. Not all carbohydrates are equal in how they affect your liver. There is one type that is particularly dangerous. Fructose. Fructose is unique because unlike glucose, it is processed almost exclusively in the liver. Other cells in your body can use glucose. But fructose? The liver has to handle almost all of it. So when you consume high amounts of fructose, whether from sugar, sweetened drinks, or even natural sources in excess, you are placing a direct metabolic burden on your liver. And that accelerates fat production inside the liver even faster. Now think about what that means. If the core mechanism behind fatty liver is driven by excess carbohydrates and insulin, and specifically liver-driven fat production, then the common advice you've been hearing starts to fall apart. Cut fat to reduce fat in the liver. That sounds logical on the surface. But biologically? It's completely backwards. Dietary fat does not significantly raise blood sugar. It does not spike insulin in any meaningful way. And without insulin, this fat-producing pathway cannot be activated. So the idea that fat causes fatty liver is not just incomplete. It's fundamentally wrong. And this misunderstanding is exactly why so many people are stuck. They're avoiding the wrong thing. And continuing to consume the very inputs that are driving the problem. So now that you understand the mechanism, we need a better way to evaluate food. Not based on labels. Not based on trends. But based on biology. From this point forward, every food we talk about will be measured using 3 simple criteria. Number 1. Does it address the root cause? In other words, does it reduce or stop the process that's creating fat in the liver? Number 2. Does it improve insulin resistance? Because if insulin remains elevated, the problem continues. And number 3. Or is it simply what we call better fish food? Meaning, it may provide some nutrients, some support, but it does not change the outcome in a meaningful way. Now let's put this into perspective, because this is where most people underestimate the problem. If we break down the total impact of reversing fatty liver, approximately 70% of the solution comes from improving insulin resistance. That is the dominant factor. Another 25% comes from addressing other root causes, things like inflammation, nutrient deficiencies, and metabolic signaling pathways. And the remaining 5%? That's everything else. That's the better fish food. Helpful, but small in impact. And this is the shift you need to make. Stop asking, is this food healthy? Start asking, does this actually change the biology driving my condition? Because once you see food through that lens, everything becomes clearer. And more importantly, you stop wasting time on things that were never going to fix the problem in the first place. Let's get into the foods themselves. And we're going to do this differently. Not based on hype. Not based on trends. But based on what actually changes the biology inside your body. We'll count down from number 10 to number 4, and you'll start to see a very clear pattern emerge. Number 10, oatmeal. Now this one shows up on almost every liver health list. And on the surface, it sounds like a good choice. It contains fiber. It's considered heart healthy. It's often recommended as a clean, safe breakfast. But here's what most people don't look at. Oatmeal is primarily a starch. And starch breaks down into glucose. That glucose enters your bloodstream, raises your blood sugar, and triggers insulin. And as you already understand, insulin is the signal that tells your body to store energy and specifically, to convert excess glucose into fat in the liver. So even though oatmeal may be better than highly processed junk food, for someone who already has fatty liver or insulin resistance, it's moving in the wrong direction. Conclusion: oatmeal does not address the root cause. It does not improve insulin resistance. And in many cases, it can make the situation worse. Number 9, water. Now water is essential. There's no question about that. If you're dehydrated, your body cannot function properly. Every system depends on adequate hydration. But here's the key distinction. Water supports normal function. It does not reverse dysfunction. Drinking more water will not reduce fat in your liver. It does not impact insulin resistance. And it does not shut down the process of fat production. So yes, drink enough water. But don't expect it to solve a metabolic problem. Now we move into the next category. These are what we call better fish food. They provide some benefit. They support the system. But they do not change the outcome in a meaningful way. Number 8, herbs and spices. Things like turmeric, cinnamon, and other plant compounds contain polyphenol. These compounds can reduce inflammation. Some of them may slightly improve insulin sensitivity. Others can support your gut microbiome. All of that sounds impressive. But here's the limitation. The effects are small, unless you use extremely high doses. And in most real-world situations, the amount people consume is nowhere near what's used in controlled studies. So yes, use herbs and spices. They add flavor. They add some benefit. But in terms of reversing fatty liver, they play a very minor role. Number 7, blueberries. Another classic superfood. They contain antioxidants and polyphenol, which can support cellular health and reduce inflammation. And yes, there is some evidence showing mild benefits for liver function. But here's the trade-off. Blueberries also contain sugar. And if consumed in large amounts, as many people do when they believe something is healthy, that sugar can increase insulin and contribute to the very process we're trying to stop. So again, this is a double-edged sword. In small amounts? Fine. But as a strategy to reverse fatty liver? Not even close. This is still in the category of better fish food. Number 6, green tea. Now we start to see something more interesting. Green tea contains a compound called EGCG, a powerful antioxidant that has been shown to support liver tissue and reduce inflammation. But here's what most people don't realize. The effectiveness of green tea depends heavily on how it's prepared and consumed. Many commercial versions, especially bottled or decaffeinated, contain very low levels of active compounds. And while concentrated extracts can deliver higher doses, they can also be risky. In high amounts, long-term use of green tea extracts has been associated with liver stress and even damage. So while green tea does offer some real benefits, it's still limited. It does not significantly improve insulin resistance, and it does not directly shut down fat production in the liver. Now we move into the next level. These are the foods that finally begin to impact the root cause. Number 5, coffee. This is where things start to shift. Coffee contains chlorogenic acid, a bioactive compound that has been shown to reduce liver enzymes and improve markers of liver health. More importantly, regular coffee consumption has been associated with a lower risk of liver fibrosis and long-term liver damage. And here's the key difference. Coffee doesn't just support the liver. It actually begins to influence the underlying processes, especially fat metabolism within the liver itself. It's not a complete solution, but it's one of the first items on this list that moves beyond better fish food. Number 4, extra virgin olive oil and avocado. Now we're stepping into a completely different category. These are high-quality fat sources rich in monounsaturated fats, particularly oleic acid. And unlike carbohydrates, these fats do not spike insulin. That alone makes a massive difference. But there's more. When you increase your intake of healthy fats like olive oil and avocado, you naturally reduce your reliance on carbohydrates. And that means less glucose, less insulin, and less fat being created inside the liver. In addition, these foods have been shown to reduce fat accumulation in the liver and support overall metabolic health. So they don't just avoid the problem. They actively move you in the opposite direction. And that's the shift we're looking for. Because now, we're no longer just feeding the fish better. We're finally starting to change the condition of the water. Now we're entering a completely different level. These are no longer just supportive foods. These are the ones that begin to create real, measurable change inside your body. Number 3, leafy greens. We're talking about spinach, kale, arugula, foods that most people underestimate because they don't feel powerful. But here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. Leafy greens provide the building blocks your body needs to produce one of the most important internal antioxidants, glutathione. Glutathione is not just another nutrient. It's your liver's primary defense system. It helps neutralize toxins. It supports detoxification pathways. And it plays a direct role in helping your liver process and clear out excess fat. Now here's another key advantage. Leafy greens have an almost negligible impact on blood sugar. That means they do not spike insulin. So while many foods are adding pressure to the system, leafy greens are quietly supporting recovery, without triggering the very mechanism that caused the problem in the first place. They also improve circulation, support nutrient delivery, and contribute to a healthier metabolic environment overall. So this is no longer better fish food. This is starting to directly support the system that repairs the damage. Number 2, cruciferous vegetables. This includes broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, foods that often get ignored or overcooked. But these vegetables contain something extremely powerful. A compound called sulforaphane. And here's where it gets interesting. Sulforaphane activates a pathway in your body known as NRF2. Think of NRF2 as a genetic switch. When it's turned on, your body increases the production of detoxifying enzymes, antioxidant defenses, and protective mechanisms across multiple systems, especially in the liver. But it doesn't stop there. Sulforaphane also enhances a process called autophagy. This is your body's internal cleanup system. Damaged cells, dysfunctional components. Metabolic waste autophagy helps break them down and remove them. And in the context of fatty liver, this is critical. Because now, you're not just slowing the damage. You're actively clearing it. One important detail: how you prepare these foods matters. The more you overcook them, the more you destroy these active compounds. So lightly steaming or even consuming them raw in some forms can significantly increase their effectiveness. At this level, we are clearly targeting the root cause. Now we move into the highest impact category. These are the foods that don't just support the process. They accelerate it. Number 1. Fermented foods and apple cider vinegar. This is where we start addressing something deeper: your gut. Your gut is not just for digestion. It's an entire ecosystem. And when that ecosystem is imbalanced, it sends signals that worsen inflammation, disrupt metabolism, and increase insulin resistance. Fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, and other naturally cultured options help restore that balance. They introduce beneficial bacteria. They improve the integrity of your gut lining. And they reduce harmful byproducts that can travel from the gut to the liver. Apple cider vinegar adds another layer. It slows gastric emptying, which helps stabilize blood sugar and reduce insulin spikes after meals. And when insulin begins to stabilize, the entire fat storage mechanism starts to slow down. So now we're not just supporting the liver directly. We're fixing one of the upstream systems that controls it. Bonus number 2. Fatty fish. This includes salmon, mackerel, sardines, rich sources of omega-3 fatty acids. And these fats do something very specific. They reduce triglyceride production in the liver. They lower inflammation. And they improve insulin sensitivity at a cellular level. This is one of the most well-documented nutritional effects in metabolic health. So while many foods have small, indirect benefits, omega-3s deliver a direct signal that helps reverse the process. And finally, bonus number 1. The most overlooked and possibly the most important: eggs and meat. Now this may surprise you, because these foods are often excluded from healthy lists. But biologically, they are critical. Eggs are one of the richest sources of a nutrient called choline. Choline plays a direct role in exporting fat out of the liver. Without enough choline, fat gets trapped inside the liver cells. In fact, in controlled conditions, researchers can induce fatty liver simply by removing choline from the diet. That's how essential it is. Meat, on the other hand, provides a dense combination of nutrients your body needs to repair and function properly: amino acids, B vitamins, iron, and compounds that support energy metabolism and cellular repair. And here's the key advantage: both eggs and meat are extremely low in carbohydrates, which means minimal impact on insulin. So instead of fueling the problem, they help shut it down. At this level, we're no longer talking about small improvements. We're talking about foods that directly support fat removal, reduce insulin resistance, and give your body the raw materials it needs to heal. This is where real change begins. Now let's bring this all together, because this is where clarity turns into action. There is no such thing as a magical superfood that can reverse fatty liver on its own. Not oatmeal. Not blueberries. Not green tea. Those foods may help, but they are not the solution. Because now you understand the truth. Around 70% of your ability to reverse fatty liver comes down to one thing: improving insulin resistance. Another portion comes from supporting your body's internal systems: your liver, your gut, your metabolism. And the foods we talked about? They make up part of that process, but only about 30% of the total picture. So if you've been focusing only on adding healthy foods, you've been focusing on the smaller piece. Here's the reframe you need to remember. The problem is not what you're eating. The problem is what you haven't stopped. Because as long as the factory is still running, as long as the excess sugars, refined carbohydrates, and constant insulin spikes are still there, your liver cannot fully recover. But here's the empowering part. Your body is not broken. Your liver is not permanently damaged. Your body has an incredible ability to repair itself. if you remove what's causing the damage in the first place. And that's exactly what I want you to focus on starting today. Here's a simple 7-day challenge. For the next 7 days, reduce refined carbohydrates, sugar, processed grains, sweetened drinks. At the same time, begin adding in the foods that actually support the root cause: leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, healthy fats, fermented foods, and high-quality protein like eggs and fish. Don't overcomplicate it. Just make that shift. Then pay attention: your energy, your digestion, how you feel after meals. Because when you start working with your biology, the feedback is immediate. Now, if this is the first time you're hearing this explained in a way that actually makes sense, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Because in the next videos, we're going to go deeper into how your metabolism really works, how to reverse insulin resistance step by step, and how to turn simple daily habits into real biological change. And if you're dealing with specific medical conditions or symptoms that concern you, always make sure to consult with a qualified doctor or healthcare professional. Use this information as a guide, but your care should always be personalized. So don't stop here. Watch the next video, because that's where we connect all of this into a clear, practical system you can actually follow. And remember this: take care of your liver, and it will take care of you.